experienced injustice. He was with widows, orphans, and strangers. Matthew 25, this is like what separates the sheep and the goats. It's actually not correct doctrine. It's not like, oh, did you have the right creed? Though those things are important, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
He actually says, did you visit people in prison?
Very good.
Yeah.
Did you welcome immigrants? That's what the stranger means, Matthew 25. Did you give a cup of cold water? Did you give clothes to people that didn't have that were naked, and it's like, do I do those things? Do our young people do those things? Do our churches? And I think yes, often, but imperfectly, and we need to grow in that.
Very good. Hello, welcome everybody to another episode of the podcast. This is a limited 6-part series with the Diaspora Network, and I'm very excited for today's episode. My name is Samuel Teka.
My name is Espoir.
And today we have a very special guest.
Yes,
he is the CEO, founder, the initiator, the progenerator. No, I'm joking.
The mentor.
Too much.
The mentor.
So many titles of the Diaspora Network, and we're very excited to be talking to him today.
To have him here.
Sir, your name?
Yeah, Jonathan Abraham Kindberg. Great to be with you guys.
Yeah. It's going to be an amazing episode. Actually, prior to the filming the podcast, we talked a little bit about the name of the podcast. We had a description written up, and I think it said Rooted and Rising. Yeah. And you like that.
Loved it.
A lot. And so, I don't know, maybe we might name the podcast Rooted and Rising. Mm-hmm. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see what the people have to say and what they think about it. But why did you like that, actually?
Yeah, I think it summarizes well kind of what we're hoping to do with the broader Next Gen initiative and these 6 values that we've been talking about. 3, I think, kind of align with Rooted.
That's right.
And 3 with Rising. So community, identity, reclaiming kind of connect to the having deep roots. And then the Rising, I think, connects to healing, mission and service, or lifestyle of justice and service. And then what's our last one? Let's see. Healing, lifestyle of justice and service.
Yeah. We actually have it in a different order.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, anyway. So healing, identity, trust me, he knows. It's just we mixed up the order. Healing, identity, reclaiming, community.
Oh, yeah.
And then
lifestyle of justice and service.
Lifestyle, justice, and service. We are missing one.
Identity.
I'm over here pulling up the notes. We're it is
bicultural bridge building.
Oh, there we go. So that's part of the Rising as well.
That's right. I promise, guys, we know.
Is developing youth and young adults to be these bridge builders in the world. So that's kind of empowering. Yeah. So anyway, it seems like it summarizes well our broader vision and these values.
That's right. And today we're going to be talking from the topic of justice and service lifestyle. And we've been, going through these different topics, and I don't know about you, but I've been learning a lot.
100%. 100%.
We talked with Fatima with Reclaiming, which was a beautiful episode. Carlos, who talked on identity. Then we're going to have one more guest that will be speaking a little bit on community.
Great.
But we're excited for you to speak about this.
Yes.
Because the last time I heard you speak about justice and a service lifestyle was the Diaspora Worship Night.
Yeah, that you all hosted. Yeah,
that we hosted.
Part of our closing retreat for the.
That's right.
For the last Next Gen cohort.
Yeah, that's right. And you spoke on the topic of justice.
Yeah,
that was the theme of your sermon, if I'm interpreting that correctly. And I guess I want to ask you, why are you passionate about this topic?
Yeah.
What makes you, I guess, adamant to not just come up with this value, which is obviously rooted in the Bible, but in your personal life, why are you passionate about this topic?
Yeah, and I think you did say part of it. I think this is rooted in the Bible, rooted in God's heart. Throughout the scriptures, God is a God of justice. He cares for the poor, the weak, the vulnerable, and we see this call throughout Scripture, which we can maybe talk about a little bit today. But then also, I think because of that, I I think it's at the heart of our call as Christians and as the church. I remember in high school, the church I was a part of in Panama in Central America was a bilingual church, English, Spanish. It was really this place for me of deep belonging and meaning. It's kind of where I got my start in ministry and leadership, and I was playing guitar and led worship, and I led the youth group. And I remember one of the things the pastor of that church in Panama, Crossroads Bible Church, he always said was, the church is the hope of the world. And this was kind of, particularly talking about the local church, he would, and that's not original to him. He's quoting, I think, another pastor, but that phrase stuck with me. I was like, what does that mean for the church to be the hope of the world? Or Jesus said the light of the world, you know? And I think so many young people, including myself, long to see the church break out of the four walls, be actually have an impact in the world. And so I could talk a lot about it, but I think it's the church network that I'm a part of, where I'm ordained as a pastor. It's called Churches for the Sake of Others. And I love that name, which I think is key to the gospel, right? What does it mean for us to be and to live for the sake of others? Good. Loving God, loving neighbor, being at the heart of what it means to be a Christian.
Yeah, that's very good. And I'm glad you're a highlight, by the way. Don't be afraid to interrupt me if you have a question, because
of course I will.
Got a couple questions. I find, growing up as a second-gen Ethiopian, in, I guess, our circle, there really isn't the topic of justice and a service lifestyle being taught all that much.
Or at least with that language or those words, maybe as much.
Yeah. And I think, there is the idea of evangelism. Yeah. There is the idea of like going out and preaching the gospel.
Yeah.
However, this language I find to be unique in a way, because I think this idea of justice is something that we see a lot in the Bible. A service lifestyle, obviously, is what Jesus really exemplified in his leadership. But why do you think? I think sometimes this idea of justice gets lost in the immigrant. Does that make sense?
For sure.
The church?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, I didn't get it a lot growing up either, even outside of the United States, in Latin America, or churches that I was a part of. I think it's not unique to the immigrant church, but to the evangelical Pentecostal tradition more broadly. So around the world, I think there's been historically this kind of division between word and deed, between proclaiming the gospel, sharing the gospel, calling people to salvation, which is so important. But often that is separated from showing the gospel, living out the gospel, and we see these actually are one and the same with Jesus. He fed people and he preached to them. Wow. He was with the poor and he called people to repentance. There was this both and that, unfortunately, and there's historical reasons in that for the church, but that has been often separated. So there's some churches that focus a lot more on the word or side of things and evangelism, and there's some churches that focus a lot more on deed, justice, service, but they kind of leave out sometimes evangelism, and we need both.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
So do you feel like these two things, justice and lifestyle, service lifestyle, do you feel like they have to be like hand in hand, or do you feel like it doesn't have to be service, or maybe it can just be justice without the service, or do you feel like they have to be? And then again, to follow up with the question of how does that look like in today's today's time?
Yeah, I think service is more common in the immigrant church. It's talked about more.
Yes.
And I think the language of justice isn't as common, and sometimes it's associated with negative things we see in the world. And so that's also sometimes why the church is...
like protesting and...
Or like there's a different definition of what justice means. Yeah. And so, I think for some people they might see protests. I actually think there's actually a potentially an appropriate place for that. the kind of the prophetic tradition of Scripture. But negative things like burning buildings down,
Gotcha.
or breaking, rebelling, and that. Even particularly in immigrant spaces, when you come to the United States or Canada, or you move as a family, you're trying to blend in. You don't want to stick out. You want to follow the rules as best you can. And so stuff like that is like, oh man, we don't want to rock the boat. And understandably, Jesus, we see both. Interestingly, he turned tables in the temple.
Right, yeah.
He challenged the Pharisees, particularly around hypocrisy, taking advantage of the poor. We see this in the prophets in the Old Testament, Amos and Isaiah, and all the biblical prophets like John the Baptist in the New Testament have this element of challenging the people of God, particularly around the poor, remembering justice. And so justice, the big component of that is remembering those that in society have been marginalized, pushed aside, forgotten. And so, getting back to your question, I think word and deed always have to go together, like service and justice and evangelism. But then even within this kind of broader, what we might call showing the gospel with our deeds, there's kind of different components, and service is such a part of the immigrant church, right? Like I think of both of your churches in the Congolese context or Ethiopian, like people practice such deep service and hospitality, right? Yeah. Like people give of their lives. There's like very few paid professional pastors. It's just the people of God serving one another through cooking meals, and someone's sick, everyone visits them, and that's like, to me, that's one of the deep blessings the immigrant church brings to the United States. Sometimes justice isn't as much like the words aren't there, but I think of churches like Pastor John Munger, the Nepali pastor here in Austin, who, during there was a freeze a couple years back in Austin when everyone lost power, and he's going out with his church trying to care for people, making sure they have electricity, feeding folks, making sure they have food. That to me is like practicing justice and service, together. Good. And they might not use those words, but I think it's this life for the sake of others. You know, in the immigrant church, man, you guys live that out sacrificially, right? Yeah. And so I think sometimes the next generation, younger people, it's once you get in the U.S. and the more you're in the U.S. and start getting comfortable and start getting into just like privilege of being in a wealthy country and all these things, we start losing some of that. And so part of our hope is actually, how do we regain this, actually, I think, a deep tradition of justice and service in the immigrant and the global church that there's a tendency maybe to not realize it's there. Yeah.
A few years ago when we were talking about COVID prior to this podcast, and around COVID, there were some pretty dramatic events that took place. A lot of, racial unrest. And there's just a lot happening.
And the world was blowing up.
Very much.
Kind of like now again.
Yeah, a little bit, right? And I remember having this conversation with this young woman, wonderful woman, loves Jesus, and she's really about advocating for, I think, BLM and the Black Lives Matter and just protesting, especially around that time. And at the time, as a pastor in Edmonton, I really had to come out with like a statement to talk about and also maybe even instruct how our people as a church should go about and respond to certain things. And I found that it was a little bit challenging with some people after when I was having
you're going to get some people mad at you. Regardless of what you say.
Regardless of what I said. And
there's hard issues in the world.
100%. And I wanted to ask you, because it's such a fine line, right? Like when you see it from the outside looking in, it's like, oh yeah, justice and like protesting and, this is what we should be doing. It's like, I think it looks good on the outside. But I think when you look deep down into it, there's something like a little bit, I don't know if I could be honest, but just like a little sinister about it, and wrong. Something feels wrong. It's not saying that the cause that they're advocating for is wrong, but I think more of just how to go about it.
Sure.
What's the fine line between what is godly justice and like worldly justice? If that makes sense.
That's a good question.
You got to participate in our cohort to get the full answer to that. Leave that one hanging.
He's trying to
gives them a little bit
a
of
little bit of a
cohort.
But those are like, we have to talk through those questions, right? And so I think part of it is, even I don't think there's a specific answer. I'll give you some ideas right now.
Yeah, please.
But I think so much is very specific to the issue, the context, who's speaking when. Part of it is discerning. Well, it's talking about developing what we call discernment or wisdom, right? And that they're not cookie cut answers, but also creating a space where we can talk about hard questions that we might not necessarily have the exact answers to. So I think in Christian spaces in general, sometimes we're afraid of hard questions. We're afraid of hard topics. I'll just mention some of them, like LGBTQ. You mentioned BLM, Black Lives Matter, protests, the role of the church in that. Things like immigration or politics. Things like mental health.
Yes.
You guys have already covered that.
Yes.
And we think the church should be a place where we can talk about it, where we can hear differences of opinion, and we're not afraid to, like, that part of being salt and light is not escaping from all that stuff. Sometimes the church wants to escape.
Wow, very good.
But get in the midst of the messiness and discern with community. We don't just do it by ourselves watching YouTube videos. Don't just discern watching this YouTube video. We do it with the church community and elders and mentors.
Wow.
We do it with the Bible, of course. We do it with the Holy Spirit. And together, we might not even come up with all the same answers, but that's part of our cohort. Honestly,
very good.
We wanna give space for these things. So now, just to give you some answer though to your question, rephrase it again for me.
What is the fine line, the difference between godly justice and worldly justice? Yeah,
there we go. So I think we need to learn like how to define justice from a biblical perspective, right? And then we can start differentiating and discerning what we see in the world and saying, where's there overlap and where's there difference?
Very good.
So justice, there are, if I'm remembering right, I don't really know Greek and Hebrew, but there are two words for this in the Bible. I actually didn't take Greek and Hebrew, so I'm proud of that. I do know Spanish. I'm learning some, Lingala and Amharic and so forth. But
we trust you.
But essentially, the word for justice in the Bible is the same word for righteousness.
Okay. That's right. So, sometimes used synonymously.
Well, it's the same word.
Yeah.
And so it's translated sometimes justice or sometimes righteousness. That's right. But usually, and this is where the other division, so word and deed has been one division in history in the church. The other is between personal righteousness or right living and social or out in the world righteousness or right living. Wow. And so some traditions in the church really focus on personal morality, not lying or cheating or drinking or smoking, things like that. And we say, hey, that's good. But the Bible also actually, it doesn't separate these out. There talks about communal or social righteousness or right living. And what is that? Is actually when everything is in right alignment. Okay? So the individual is in right relationship with God, with others, with creation, so forth. That's the individual, but then on the social side. And that's sometimes how we would actually speak about justice. In Spanish, it's fun when you read the Bible in Spanish, the word is just justicia. And that's personal or social. Wow. And so seek first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness. Righteousness is the same word, it's justice. And it just depends on how you translate it. It actually means, and everything will be added unto you. And in the Beatitudes, when Jesus says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, it's the same word for justice, and some translations will do one or the other. That's good. Micah really 6:8, to walk humbly with God, to practice justice, and this is throughout the Bible. So,
very good.
but how we determine that, how we define that biblically, right living, right relationships, sometimes shalom in the Bible, is going to be different than the world, and how we pursue that.
Very
also.
good. Yeah.
So that is a whole
Right.
longer conversation,
Wow.
Yeah.
a sermon that I won't give today, but
Yeah.
that means that we actually do things differently. I think as Christians, it means, for example, we don't pursue this through violence in any way.
Very good.
Violence through words or deeds, I think, and this we see this Sermon on the Mount too, is antithetical to the way of peacemaking and justice. And so, burning down a building or looting or attacking somebody with words or a certain disposition of heart that would have anything related to violence or hate or I think that's sometimes the world pursues justice that way, or they think of it more as revenge, right?
Yeah.
That's not biblical. The biblical way of justice is actually, say, Psalm 37, the meek will inherit the earth. That was talking about, anyway, there's a whole sermon there about landlessness. Israel had lost their land. How do they pursue justice and get their land back when they were powerless in that situation? And it says, don't fret. It has this word about anger in there. So how we pursue justice is different but than the world sometimes. But we need to engage and not be afraid. Martin Luther King Jr., for example, is a great example of service and justice. He was a black preacher and not perfect, but was trying to, from a biblical perspective, say, how do we pursue right in the world when there's darkness and wrong? And one of the ways he said was not violently.
Wow.
Our means and
Very
our ends
good.
have to align. So stuff like that.
Very
That's
good.
really good.
Very good.
That's really good. I mean, it's just like this is such a great topic because I feel like with specifically justice, in one form or the other, it's something that every individual, right,
Especially younger folks today,
younger folks,
right?
100%.
Especially
are
younger
reading about, thinking about maybe in
100%,
school
yeah.
or, but not in the church sometimes.
not in church, and that's the thing of like, which to bring in the cohort, right? It's like these are the tools that, right? Like, because like I feel like as a young adult, right? It's like most of the time, for example, like my friends used to always invite me to go, hey, let's go protest for the BLM, let's go protest for this, and most of the time I wouldn't go.
Yeah, and it's
'Cause
like,
I'm
how
like-
do you respond as a Christian?
Right. I'm like, I don't know, like
there's
if I
tension
just
there.
go with you, I'm just kind of just going with you.
Yeah.
But I don't understand the cause. Like, or
What am
he
I-
hasn't
what
hit
am I
me yet,
fighting
or he hasn't
for?
100%, right?
And how do I do that?
Very
Yeah.
good.
But that's why I'm just like the tools, right? It's like the tools to actually which like just hearing you
What's
talk.
a Christian way to pursue
What's
change
what's
in
a
the
proper
world?
way?
Yes,
Like what's an
yes.
actual way that this is actually going to be more effective, right? And how change is going to come. And so, which is why like this whole service and lifestyle also like I'm really appreciating it, because it's like it's not just you do this, you seeking justice, right? And then that's it. But it's like what comes after, like the works that you put in, right?
Yeah,
like what
yeah.
you do. And I feel like with those are the tools that I feel like the next generation, right, needs to.
Yeah, and I think are hungry for, right?
Right, because like
And
when,
this is
when we
why
get
so
those,
many people leave the church, especially young people, is they see the church as being a place of hypocrisy. A group of people have nothing to do with the problems in the world. And we actually say, no, the gospel, Jesus, the cross, has everything to do with BLM and racial injustice and LGBTQ and
That's right.
poverty. Now, maybe different than what the world thinks about it, but we do believe the Bible and Jesus speaks into those. But we have to equip young people to do it. Otherwise, they will leave.
They will leave.
And I don't personally want to be a part of a church that doesn't make a difference in the world.
Yeah.
I don't want to be following a Messiah that is hiding from the problems in the world or irrelevant. And I don't think Jesus. I think Jesus is. He stepped into the deep darkness of this world. Philippians 2 talks about this descent into not just being a human, but dying on a cross. He died like a criminal. Jesus was in prison. Okay, yeah, wrongly imprisoned. He experienced injustice. He was with widows, orphans, and strangers. Matthew 25. This is like what separates the sheep and the goats. It's actually not correct doctrine. It's not like, oh, did you have the right creed? Though those things are important, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
he actually says, "Did you visit people in prison?
Very good. Yeah.
Did you welcome immigrants? That's what the stranger means, Matthew 25. Did you give a cup of cold water? Did you give clothes to people that didn't have that were naked? And it's like, do I do those things? Do our young people do those things? Do our churches? And I think yes, often, but imperfectly, and we need to grow in that.
Very good.
That's really good.
So here's the question I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel that there's no way for someone to pursue justice unless they feel the emotion of anger. Mm-hmm. And here's what I mean by that.
Yeah.
I don't mean anger in a negative sense. I feel that there has to be a little bit of discomfort in you.
Yes.
And righteous anger for you to be like, this is wrong. And there has to be justice.
Yes.
However, I have noticed in my personal life, I'll speak for myself and then I'll speak for people that I've observed. Anger is something we run away from. And the reason why is because often we think the emotion of anger is inherently evil or sinful.
Yes.
So I think there's a lot of people, and I know there's a lot of people because I used to think this way, where they're like, oh, I can't get angry. It's sinful. It's wrong.
I can't be a Christian and be angry.
Yes. However, there are many moments where Jesus would get angry. You brought up the example of Jesus flipping tables.
Yeah.
He wasn't angry
in an out of control way.
He was angry out of love. It was rooted in holiness and love.
And in that case, it was because immigrants were being taken advantage of.
Exactly.
In the temple.
Yes.
The Gentiles weren't allowed to worship, and this is supposed to be a house of prayer for all nations.
Exactly.
And it was particularly low income,
or
poor immigrants who had to bring and exchange money to buy their offering, and so that was when
the currency exchange, and
that's a great time. There, you guys we've all experienced unjust currency exchanges, right?
Yes,
where you get taken advantage. So Jesus was angry there.
Yeah. So speak into that, please. Like, I want you to think about people who maybe grew up like I did, where anger is something that they run away from, as opposed to, and Espoir says this a lot. He says anger is like a sign. It's like an indicator. It's communicating something to you. Yeah. Speak into that. Like, speak into the anger part that leads to justice and a service lifestyle.
But before he even speak, like it's because it's the turning point for people. Anger. I feel like in the sense of like
sometimes a wake up kind
of right. It's like some people actually get angry, and so into doing that, the way that they are seeking justice becomes an unrighteous way.
Yes.
Right. Versus somebody else who actually sees this thing in the actual, they're seeking justice in the right way. Then they use that they channel that energy to actually fuel them up to probably serving people and do something else. Yeah. Kind of just talk a little bit about that.
So there's anger is a great topic, and it overlaps with the area of healing, right? That other topic area and mental health. And so, first of all, like from that perspective, a mental health and healing perspective, all of us actually have anger. It's there. We just have to name it and be honest and give space to it. And the most dangerous anger is one that's not acknowledged or given space for. It comes out, what we say often, it comes out sideways. And so you're angry at your spouse or your parents or your friend, but you don't have the tools to talk about it or address it directly. So it comes out through body language.
Very good.
So we call being passive aggressive.
Passive aggressive, yeah.
So someone slams a door, or they stop talking to you, or you just can't talk about certain topics. That's what we would call a dysfunctional side of expressing anger. That's super common and
that's right
everywhere, right? But also in immigrant families and churches and stuff. Healthy anger, how do we actually give proper space and naming of it so that it doesn't control us?
That's right.
And so we can experience healing. Because usually, and you're right, anger points, it's a pointer, I think you were saying, Espoir, to usually an area of brokenness or pain. So anger is usually a secondary emotion.
That's right.
The primary emotion, kind of underneath that, is is sadness. Usually has to do with loss. And so many of us are angry because we were hurt in some way. So all of us have been hurt by our parents. All of us have hurt other people. And all of us experience anger, even just interpersonally. How do we express that, deal with that, process that? There's a lot of pieces important there. Now, as we think about in the world, I agree with you. We can't understand the need for justice or service or peacemaking or kind of that side of the gospel until we realize that the world is really broken. That should make us angry. So when I was in college, for example, I spent time in a refugee camp, and the electricity would be regularly cut off by another people group that controlled that refugee camp.
Oh, wow.
The water would be regularly cut off. And I stayed there. The first day I was there, they didn't have running water. Sometimes it was cheaper to buy Coke than to buy drinking water, like Coca-Cola.
Wow.
And that's wrong. That should make us angry. In the same way to see children being hurt or human trafficking, people, all the kind of wrongs that we see in the world, racism, that is the world not working as God intended it. And that war, in Congo, people being displaced, genocide. Man, the world is full of brokenness. We can't shy away from that. If we don't have the gospel, we get lost in that. And that summer when I was in that refugee camp for 3 months, it's a Palestinian refugee camp in Bethlehem, of all places, modern-day Bethlehem, that at the end of that 3 months that I was there, I was depressed because that anger didn't have an outlet. And I was just sitting in the brokenness of the world, people getting arrested in the middle of the night. And it's a complicated situation, but that was one of my first times experiencing the world really broken. But, we've all seen it in small and big ways. Systems that don't work for us. Poverty or even, someone who's made fun of for being an immigrant or not speaking the language well. Or someone who came, as a doctor in their home country and they come here and have to be a janitor. All that kind of stuff. Like, that should make us angry. What do we do with that?
Yes.
Again, a topic for the cohort. But like in the Beatitudes, in the Sermon on the Mount, there's a whole topic there of anger, and essentially is in your anger do not sin.
That's right.
There's also in the epistles, anger is not itself a sin, but what we do with it. And if I think one short way of saying is if we don't give folks, particularly young people in the church, a way to channel anger into biblical peacemaking and fighting for what's right in the world, they will get depressed. And it'll eat. Like anger is a little bit like corrosive poison.
That's right.
So we can't sit with it. It's got to have an outlet. And one of it has to be things like therapy and talking with mentors and conversations like this. But another has to be energetic service of God in the world.
Do you feel like, in a sense, just hearing your talk, right? That was such a beautiful answer. But do you feel like it's sometimes we need justice for ourselves first before we even we're kind of just getting to hear what you just elaborating it and explaining to us, because I'm like, some people they're not in tune with themselves to actually see where they're at, right? So
kind
like
of the rooted and rising,
right?
You can't rise if you're not
rooted, right? So like how does one like break
to the other
all the way down to like the actual go through these layers to get to that sadness, right? And be like, okay, this is what this is, and then how do one then bring the Holy Spirit and then Jesus
healing and a service of justice and lifestyle are connected.
Very good.
And then in the Bible, it's love of God and love of neighbor.
Okay.
Very good.
So what are the two greatest commandments? Love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. The first, we receive God's love, and that's part of healing, restoration. We got to bring our anger and our pain. Like, a lot of the folks at your church, Espoir, come from refugee backgrounds. They've experienced in you yourself violence, ethnic violence, pain, deep pain. If we need to teach, like, even that generational passing on of trauma, how do we bring those things to God and the gospel? and how does Jesus and the gospel bring healing there, so that we can be agents of healing in the world.
For sure.
And so that's part of this whole part of the cohort is like the pain that you experience by being in between, not African enough or not Ethiopian enough or not American enough or whatever. That pain can be part of your purpose in the world of bringing out others
Very
on
good.
the outside in.
Very good.
Of being bridge builders, because you understand what it's like to be on the outside.
Very good.
The pain of being from a refugee family or being even experience horrific things. If you can experience healing through the gospel, that can be part of your mission in the world. Apostle Paul in the New Testament talks about we receive God's compassion so that we can give it to others.
Very good.
Wow.
And so this is why we believe in, like I believe in you too, believe in this cohort, is that this is a space to bring part of the pain of your background, of your refugee or immigrant experience, of maybe even racism or exclusion that you've experienced at some point, because we've all experienced it in some way, to bring that experience, God's healing, for the sake of serving in the world.
Yeah, because one of the biggest thing that I always kind of that I've always, every single time whenever we get to have this conversation of like justice or one of the biggest thing that always comes in my head, it's almost like I see my mind as like a hotel. And I've seen like there's rooms that all these like
It's like the movie Hotel Room. You guys seen
it's
that?
like all these rooms that like people have occupied, but people who are not authorized to be there. Like you said, the trauma from these refugee camps.
Yeah.
And so they're there.
There's no space.
There's no space, and like the person that we're seeking as like individuals or young adults
Who we
or
wanna
immigrants
become.
to come and so there's always somebody that we want to come and rescue us, right? To help me chase away these people who are in these rooms out, right? Without actually recognizing that, like, if I actually invite the Holy Spirit, right? If I actually exercise what the Bible is telling me,
experience
the Holy
healing.
Spirit equips me with the power to literally chase them away, and all that literally takes is just like inviting the actual person who is authorized to be there, right? And so just getting to hear that, I think it's from what I just got from this conversation, it's seeking justice within yourself first, right?
Or,
and then
or experiencing
it
healing
in
for
healing
the sake
for
of
the sake
living
of
that
like
justice.
100%. Yeah.
I think sometimes we use the example of a backpack.
Yes.
Maybe similar to your house example, but imagine you're hiking and you have this backpack full of rocks. Those rocks are the trauma and pain of your background, the injustices you've experienced, or your family, or even the pain of not being understood, whatever that means. A lot of young people in our immigrant churches and spaces have a backpack full of these heavy rocks. We're calling and say, you can climb the mountain. Like, you were built for mountain climbing and for adventure and for serving God but it's going to be hard to do that when you don't have space for, and so you got to empty that backpack out. And I think, Sam, your story, I mean, really both of your all stories in different ways, such a piece of that. Like, for me, when I came back from that refugee camp, which is such a small, like, I'm not a refugee, right? I just experienced it for 3 months.
Yeah.
Like, your family, this is your years experience, right? But after that, I had to find healing even just from those 3 months to get those rocks out. Some of that was therapy. Some of it was talking with a mentor. The Psalms have all this language around anger too.
So true.
You can't understand anger without understanding the Psalms. And injustice. My God, why have you forsaken me?
Yeah.
Psalm 88, which we often don't pray these in the church because they're kind of messy,
That's right,
scary
yeah.
ones. But all that is figuring out ways to get those rocks out. And then we have space for serving others.
So
then we have space for loving our spouse or our children or our spiritual children in the church. We can't give what we don't have, right?
Yeah,
That's true. That's good.
Very good.
That's good.
No, Jonathan, I think you're touching on something that I think a lot of people are going to connect to, because you're right. I think we can't live a life of justice and a service lifestyle unless we have first been healed.
Yeah.
And I mean, we are, I think, just a living testimony, example
of God's
that,
healing, right?
of God's healing. Like,
Praise
when I
the Lord.
think about a little bit off the topic, but still on the same topic, my mom, who, has schizophrenia, she, we had a lot of trouble navigating that. and it was very hard, and there was a lot of trauma, a lot of pain, a lot of hurt,
And probably
there.
anger, too.
And
I mean,
so much anger.
yeah,
I mean,
that would be only normal and natural.
unspeakable
Yeah.
anger. And however, meeting Jesus, getting the healing
Yeah.
that I needed, being able to address it, process it, talk about it with others, have an outlet,
Yeah.
I think has brought me to the other side of
Yeah.
healing, to the extent that now
You can be an
I
agent
could
of
be an
healing
agent of healing to
others.
other people that are, you know, how many who hear the testimony
Yeah, yeah.
or the story that I have and are like, oh, I have a same
I'm not
similar
alone. You too.
situation.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, if I wasn't
Yeah.
healed, I wasn't able to extend
Yeah.
a helping
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah.
But now being
Now
healed,
you can.
I'm able to do that.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing,
It's the same thing.
here.
Henry
which is
Nouwen
beautiful.
calls it being wounded healers, because we're never fully healed.
That's right.
I know y'all have talked
Yeah.
about that, but to the extent that we are experiencing God's own healing, we can offer that to others.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit the analogy of when you're on a plane,
Hmm.
and they give that announcement about the
Yeah,
the
that's
air
right.
masks, and it says
Put on
first put
first.
on your own, and then put on a child
That's
who's next
right.
to you, which is counterintuitive. As people that want to serve other people, sometimes we want to help everyone
help
else.
everyone else, and then us
And
last.
it's like,
Yeah.
nah, you got to get your oxygen flowing good.
That's right.
Then you can help others.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
and you should.
Yeah, and because it's dangerous.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
part
yeah.
of the reason why they say that is because if you don't do that,
You
and
pass out.
there's no oxygen, you pass
you're
out,
not
and
gonna
then
help
this
the kids
person,
who are with you.
so then
Yeah.
both of you guys are in trouble,
That's
right?
right.
And so
You're screwed. You're both screwed.
Exactly,
Really? Yeah.
exactly. Let me ask
100%.
you this question. Can you share a personal story moment when you saw the impact of justice or service, either in your own life or in someone else's?
Yeah.
Yeah. So often I can think of examples of injustice, right? And then where the church has stepped in. So one example that comes immediately to mind. A part of my ministry often has been living in low-income apartment complexes with immigrants and refugees. That's where I started with some friends. Our first church plant in Chicago, and then lived in another one just down the road. And here in Austin, I was living in an apartment complex for a couple of years. I remember one neighbor. There's all kinds of injustices at low-income apartment complexes. I can think of a bunch of stories, but I remember one neighbor, immigrant family, didn't speak English. I think they were from Mexico. I can't remember. A baby and some small kids. The water, and they lived in a first floor apartment, and above their bed, the pipe above their bed, like in the roof between them and upstairs, burst, and there was all this water damage literally on their bed. And it was a one-bedroom apartment, and their baby slept like right there.
Wow.
And it's dangerous, right? It can be electrical stuff
Right, for
is
sure,
there.
for sure.
So they went to talk to the manager, and the manager wouldn't give them another apartment.
Wow.
And there's all kinds of reasons, like they don't speak English good, they're not going to make any problem. It's like you can kind of just push people away. So they came to talk to me, and there was an opportunity to speak on behalf of and to translate for and to stand up. And I went, and I remember I was really angry. I was like, how can you not give them another apartment? There's a baby here, and they're like, this is a risk, and like that was to me an opportunity as the church. They didn't go to our church. I don't know if they were Christians. I can't remember, but as they knew we were Christians, they knew we were neighbors. And in that case, they knew I spoke English, and being white American, there's a little bit more leverage that I had there, and so they asked for help. So, to me, that's a very small way of like, hey, this is wrong. So helping out. In Austin, my apartment, the week of our wedding, a similar apartment complex, didn't have electricity the whole week. I had to live somewhere else, and it was only my apartment, and the apartment complex wouldn't do anything.
Wow.
And so that's the kind of stuff that recent immigrants experience all the time,
Wow.
So I think, how does the church literally make people's lives better, and how are we a part of speaking into the eternity, but also speaking now?
There now.
There's a lot of examples, I think, of heroes that we'll talk about in the cohort, and people that to me are of course, we see in the Bible so many folks, but in church history, there's folks like Josephine Bakhita. Have you guys heard of her?
No.
Sudanese. She was sold as a slave into Italy in the 1800s. She fights for her own freedom, is freed, one of the first like freed slaves, and then gives the rest of her adult life to serving others in Italy as an immigrant, really like someone from who had been a slave, formerly a slave. People like that, or people like Shane Claiborne, you might have heard about him. He's leads a ministry called The Simple Way, or John Perkins is an African-American gentleman from Mississippi who grew up in the civil rights era and has just modeled this like Christian peacemaking, Christian justice and service. Those are some of like my heroes. Or Oscar Romero is someone in El Salvador. Those, like, how do we highlight some of these kind of stories of folks that live this out in a similar way that Jesus did?
Yeah.
Like,
good.
I mean, we're getting close to an end, and I would like to take this time to, we got the opportunity to get him here, and so talk about the next gen cohort.
Yeah. If you liked this, there's more to come.
There's more to come, yeah.
Please.
And this is some of the kinds of conversations that we'll get to have over the course of 5 months. Depending on when folks are listening to this podcast, if you haven't yet, our deadline's coming up soon, but apply for this. It's a 5-month opportunity for 17 to 29-year-olds in immigrant churches or from immigrant backgrounds to talk about these 6 values that you guys have been talking about in this podcast series, Rooted and Rising. And excited for I haven't even got to hear all of the other ones yet, so I'm excited to hear your other conversations you've had with folks like Carlos and Fatima, but really grateful for you all in the Next Gen Initiative leadership team. You guys are modeling this in so many ways.
What about you?
Jonathan.
Why is it important for people to sign up for the cohort?
Everything that you just said.
It's like
You get to hang out with folks like them. That's why. Yeah.
He said it.
You get a T-shirt too. This is,
there you go.
Everyone,
Yeah,
this
every
is our
time.
That's a
T-shirts
nice
from our
shirt.
last cohort. So you part of the cohort, you get a T-shirt like this.
Jonathan, we could speak to you
For
about this for a long
hours.
time. Yeah. We could literally.
Hours.
You could tell you are passionate about this, and you love what you're doing. And it's very telling. So thank you seriously so much
guys.
for
It's really fun.
taking your time to be with us on the podcast. And hopefully there will be more.
Yeah, hope
No,
more.
there for sure.
Share it.
There has
Pass
to be
this on to
more.
your friends.
pass it on.
Share it with your immigrant church
That's
networks
right.
or youth groups. And
with his mind, just getting to hear it, like for sure, we need a part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5.
Yeah.
But
and if you're a listener, like, let us know if this was helpful. Like, this is a kind of a pilot, like a test run kind of.
Yep.
So after these 6 episodes, we want to hear from you. Did you like this? Do you
Right.
want more?
Yeah.
What are questions that we didn't get to touch on?
That's right.
Hey, something you disagreed with, or
sure.
you were like, oh, I don't know about that. Let us know. We want
Yeah.
this to be engaging
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
actually helpful. So.
Yeah, and put that all in the comment section, and we'll link all of what the cohort is about in the description down below. And thank you guys for tuning in. Much love, and we'll see you guys next time.
And the most important thing before we close,
Say it.
the most important thing is hitting the like button.
Oh, the subscribe too, right?
But mostly the like button.
Oh, okay.
Because the like button sends this video to other people like you who are listening.
That's good.
Who needs this?
maybe your
Because that's how
friends or family that can see
right,
it.
right. So like other people on YouTube on this, looking for this type of conversation. So whenever you hit that like button, it's not for you. It's for the other person.
There you go.
And this message could be for them. So we really want to thank you guys for always staying in tune. We want to thank our guest for today, Jonathan, and then this guy right here next to me. So of course,
You're doing a great job. It was really fun.
Much love. Cool. We're done. Wow, that was really good.
Good stuff.
Whoa,
Fun.
so good.